morning.
How are you this morning?
I'm awake.
Live, awake, alert, enthusiastic, and filled with the joy of living. Yes. So we're going to do something just a little bit different this morning. I'm going to ask you if you've had anything good happen to you this week, and if you have, would you be willing to share your good with us? Linda Steiner.
I started my new job.
Woo-hoo.
And the first thing they're doing is sending me to Juneau.
Okay.
I just got back from a trip to visit my brand new grandson.
Oh, how exciting.
I won tickets to KNBA's concert last night, We Banjo 3. So it's the second time I've won tickets for KNBA, and it made me very happy.
Wonderful. Anybody else have any good? Oh, look, we've got lots of good going on here.
On one of those nice days, we went flying over Knik Glacier and saw Lake George and all the little icebergs. It was just beautiful.
I was going to go to a course for work somewhere, but the course was full, so instead, my friend and I decided to do a companion fare to Honolulu, Hawaii. So for $250 nonstop round trip, I'm going to Hawaii instead.
Anybody else have any good they want? Of course they do.
I'm trading in my car for a profit.
Wonderful.
And it was the second car I drove, so I'm really happy.
I just accepted a new job this week as well, so.
So we got that good going on here. Anybody else? James.
I got married on Sunday, last Sunday.
And I was there. It was great.
And is that who you married?
Yes.
They got married, yes.
She also got married.
That takes two, I think. Anybody else have any good they share? We're just full of good today. So I have 6 little stories with lots of meaning that I came across on the internet last night, and I had to print them out. And it says, once all the villagers decided to pray for rain. On the day of the prayer, all of the people gathered, but only one boy came with an umbrella. That is faith. When you throw babies in the air, they laugh because they know you will catch them. That is trust. Every night when we go to bed, without any assurance of being alive the next morning, we still set the alarms to wake up. That is hope. We plan big things for tomorrow in spite of zero knowledge of the future. That is confidence. We see the world suffering, but still we get married and have children, and that is love. And 6th, on an old man's shirt was written the sentence, I am not 80 years old. I am sweet 16 with 64 years experience. That is attitude. I like that attitude. So today I'm going to talk about prosperity and living in the flow. And what exactly is prosperity anyway? And what does it mean to live life in the flow? Well, prosperity is a way of thinking and a way of being, and not something that you get. The word affluent literally means an abundant flow. And don't we all want that? And don't we all want to spend as much time as we can in the state of abundance? Eric Butterworth tells us, God is not a random distributor of goods, but gives equally to all according to our consciousness. So it's our consciousness that attracts our prosperity. It has nothing to do with the economy. When we are consciously centered in the universal flow, he says, we experience inner direction and unfoldment of creative activity. Things come too, but things are not the prosperity. When we can be consciously centered in the universal flow, he says, we experience inner direction and the unfoldment of creative activity. the unfoldment of creative activity. Things come too, but they're not prosperity. And the further our wealth, if you will, is not tied to the stuff out there. It's not tied to the economy. So if the word prosperity comes from the Latin meaning to go forward, prosperity is then not a condition of life, but an attitude of life. Emily Cady tells us that God is not loving. God is the allness of love. God is not wise. God is the allness of wisdom. God is not the dispenser of divine substance. God is the divine substance, and it is in that substance that we live and move and have our being, and we are abundant. The word substance comes from the Latin word meaning stand under. God is the substance that stands under everything. Each one of us is God expressing, and it is our faith with which we form spirit substance. Mike Todd, and for those of you who don't know who he was the producer of Around the World in 80 Days. And he said, "Many times I have been broke, but I have never been poor." Many times I have been broke, but I have never been poor. We live in a world where we experience illness and health, abundance and lack, joy and sadness, but there is a substance that stands under every human experience. Think of this statement. You've heard it many times. The whole of God is present at every point in space all the time. And that bears repeating. It bears memorizing, meditating upon. The whole of God is present at every point in space at the same time. God doesn't come and go. It's always present. It doesn't just show up sometimes. It's always present, and there's no limitation. But there is a limitation sometimes within our consciousness. We can accumulate riches. We can accumulate stuff. We can accumulate lots of stuff. But we cannot accumulate substance. What we need to remember is there is a continuous flow. There's a continuous flow of ideas. There's a continuous flow of goods. There's a continuous flow of opportunities. However, as the song says, we have to treat and move our feet. Pray and take action. God can only do for you what God can do through you. In other words, you and I need to raise our consciousness. Eric Butterworth reminds us that when we do positive affirmations, they don't become true because we say them. They are true. And we are bringing the awareness of their truth into our own consciousness by affirming them. And it's apparent that many people in our society believe in lack. That it is us versus them, that there's not enough. So what do? Do we celebrate someone else's good fortune, or do we resent it? Why them and not me? We need to examine what we believe and check out if there are, or might be, some beliefs we might want to change. Why not me? Why not me as well would be it. In the spiritual realm, there is no competition. It's always enough. Enough for each and every one of us. There's always enough. In 1927, Max Ehrmann wrote Desiderata, which became very popular in the 70s. And I'm going to quote a little excerpt from here. "You are a child of the universe. No less than the trees and the stars, you have a right to be here. And whether or not it is clear to you, the universe is unfolding as it should." And sometimes I think we lose sight of the fact that we have a right to be here. We have a right to enjoy all the good that God has in store for us. You are a creative piece of that universe that he's talking about. And it is your responsibility to let that light shine. It is your responsibility because you know the universe will always, always support you. We get to know ourselves. We get to claim ourselves within that universe. and it will rush to us with a multitude of opportunities. You're a special person. There is absolutely no one quite like you in this world. Never has been, never will be. And when you get in the flow of life, the universe unfolds through you, and it flows through you. Amazing things. That, you know that song, You Can Do Amazing Things. You've heard it, and you said it, and you've sung it, and you can be it. You can do amazing things. We say in this philosophy that if you change your thinking, you can change your life. I stress in the foundations class how important it is not only to change our thinking, but to change our speaking. There's a story in the Bible about the lady who had only 1 cup of oil. She was a poor widow when she had only 1 cup of oil. But when she went and got more cups, when she did not limit herself, all of those cups are filled. The only was her lack, and the additional cups was her faith. When she let go of the only, she allowed faith to provide. So what I want to know is, how many onlys do you have in your life? I only have this much money. I only have this much time. I only. How often do you I only limit your very good? You know? How often do we make statements that are not affirming our wholeness and our oneness? I am sick, I am tired, I'm poor. So what we need to do is to examine that verbiage that we're using and change it. I may be experiencing illness, but the truth of who I am is perfect health. I may be experiencing lack in this very moment, but the truth of who I am is unlimited supply. So I don't know how many of you know about Brother Lawrence, but he lived in the 1600s. And he practiced the presence of God. He talked to God all the time. He had an intimate relationship with God. He conversed with him as he went about his daily business. He peeled potatoes with God. He scrubbed floors with God. He weeded gardens with God. He cooked meals with God. He had a very close and personal relationship with God. His life centered around his connection to the divine. He was continually affirming that connection. What would happen if we did that? What would happen if we continually affirmed the presence of the divine, that infinite, eternal substance that's all there is, that's all of us? Do you ever have internal conversations with God? Sometimes I have mine out loud and drive in the car, and people probably think I'm crazy, but if we constantly, consistently remind ourselves of our connection to the source, when we consistently remind ourselves, we will begin then to realize true prosperity. Spiritual Economics on page 34 says, it is an important moment in your life when you discover for yourself the great truth that things may happen around you, things may happen to you, but the only things that really count are things that happen in you. He reminds us, Mr. Butterworth, that we don't have control over the Wall Street. We don't have control over the politicians, or we don't have control over the behavior of other people, but we do have control over what goes on in our own minds. Change your thinking, change your life. When we take full responsibility for our lives, when we change our consciousness, we change what happens in our lives. And though this may not seem to affect the economy much, change starts very small. It can start, and it starts somewhere. And why not let it start with you and let you build your fortune because you've changed your thinking? You know, when the stock market crashed, people jumped out of windows back in the 20s. And yet there were people who survived it and grew. And the difference was the difference in their consciousness. When we appear to take a downturn, we can react in faith or we can react in fear. I would suggest not to give too much reality to the ain't it awful stuff, and remember where we put our attention is where we create. So what we want to do is put our attention on the good things that we want to create in our lives. The way we think can add to our world. Remember, each one of us, our consciousness is a magnet and it attracts to us according to our beliefs. Paul says in the New Testament, don't let the world around you force you into its mold, but let God remold your mind from within. We are spiritual beings. We have divine mind within us. It's our job, it's our duty then to go within and to discover a deeper awareness, a deeper sense of oneness with God, a deeper sense of life and the ability to apply divine law and to know God, and then to just allow that demonstration to happen. We're just going to allow it to happen. We're not going to force it. We're just going to allow it to happen. On page 35 of Science of Mind, it says, when we learn to trust the universe, we shall be happy, prosperous, and well. We must learn to come under that divine government and accept the fact that nature's table is ever filled. So God's always on your side. God's always on my side too. God, it has an interest in you. You're expressing God. And honestly, when you're expressing someone, something, it has an interest in you. Remember to turn to the center of your being and to relax and to know that God's got this, whatever it is. Relax and know that God's got this if we but stop and listen to that still small voice within us. It's talking to us all the time, but sometimes our monkey mind chatter covers it up. That's why we get to meditate. Instead, many of us worry. We create pictures of the very worst possible thing that could happen, and we focus on it, and then guess what? It happens. Because that's where we put our attention. We create it because of all of the fear and the anxiety and the energy. We went to that picture of the worst possible scenario. And we can also create positively. When we change our thinking and change our life, when we think positively, we can create positive things in our life. We get to use the fundamental metaphysical law correctly. And remember, it's a law. If you use it, it always works. Gravity always works. Yeah, the law of tenfold return works. The law of cause and effect works. When Jesus said, do not judge by appearances, but judge with right judgment, he is saying not to live our life paranoid of what's happening, not to let the Dow Jones report affect us, or what some politician says or does to create our mood for the day. Many people live that way. They let outside things create their day for them, create their mood. What Jesus is telling us is to maintain our connection with divine substance. When we see with right judgment, we are looking from our consciousness within. Now that doesn't mean that we get to ignore what's happening. Facts are facts. We don't get to stick our head in the sand. We do need to have a clear picture, but we also need to respond rather than to emotionally react. Each one of us are centered in God, and each one of us has the ability to see the allness in illness, to see the abundance in lack, to see that we are the all self-sufficient. As Emerson said, what we can do is we can contemplate the facts from the highest point of view. Remember, we do not see things as they are. We see things as we are. We usually try to act like the person that we think we are, don't we? Our own self-image. Emerson says we surround ourselves with our self-image, and if our image is inaccurate, we project that onto everything and everybody. Okay, let's think about that for a minute. I'm not good enough. I'm too old. I'm too young. I'm not smart enough. Are we projecting those things, or are we projecting our wholeness and our goodness and our oneness and our creativity, knowing that all things are possible through God? We get to look at the truth of who we truly are. Who are you? Who are you? I am an expression of the divine. Could you say that with me? I am an expression of the divine. You, right here, right now, exactly sitting here, you are created in the image and likeness of God, and it doesn't get any better than that. That's the best that you can do. That is who you really are. That is who I really am. It's more than just a positive statement. It's the truth of us. We have the potential within us, each one of us, to become, to be prosperous, to be happy, to live a fulfilled life, to be successful at whatever it is that we want to do. Each one of us can celebrate the truth of who we are. Imagine yourself successful at whatever it is that you want to do, instead of, that never works for me. It has to do not so much with what we say, but with what we truly believe. It is more than just positive thinking. It's aligning ourselves with the divine. It's aligning ourselves with the power of the one, and being able to see the conditions that we choose to manifest in our lives. Science of Mind, page 39 says, how much can one demonstrate? Just what one can believe. How much can we see? How much can we accept? How much can we find in our consciousness that is no longer repudiated by our own denials? Whatever it is, that's how much that we can have. So you have homework this week. You know, I like to give homework. Their homework this week is to practice that presence with the divine. Have those internal and external conversations when you're doing the dishes or driving the car, whatever it is you're doing. Practice the presence of having the divine in your life every single day. I think when we have a crisis, we're willing to practice the presence of the divine. When things are going good, we don't do it so much. So the idea is to remember every day to practice that presence, to have those internal conversations with the one who resides within you. Okay, let us pray. Sweet, sweet Spirit, Father, Mother God, that whole and holy presence in which we live and breathe and have our being, the all-powerful one, the divine creator. I know that there is nowhere that God is not, and therefore I know that I am one with that divine and holy and powerful presence. And if that is true for me, that is true for each and every person here. One with the one with strength, one with health, one with wholeness, one with all that is. And so as I speak my word this day, I know that we move through this ensuing week with peace and joy and love, practicing the presence of the one. I know that each and every activity in which we partake is God interacting with God. I know that light and love fills our hearts, our souls, and our lives throughout this week. I simply say thank you as I release this word to the perfect working of the perfect law that always, always, and only says yes. Please join me in affirming. And so it is. Amen.